Welcome to the Nightly Nuge.
Welcome to another edition of the Nightly Nuge. Good evening, Ted. This is the March Madness week, and I think our whole world is in madness, so it's appropriate, right?
Well, you know, a lot of my friends are into spectator sports, so they're talking about this March Madness stuff. But my name is Ted Nugent. Even though this is the Nightly Nuge, this is really how I am for the last 70 years, probably since I was a toddler, with the mystical flight of the arrow and pursuing the Chuck Berry soundtrack for freedom and defiance and liberty and life in pursuit of happiness. So March Madness to me in 2022 should be the impetus and the celebration of we the people re-engaging. If you want to be a spectator for sports, that's fine. But how dare an American be a spectator in the experiment in self-government? And Keith, we'll talk about that probably in every episode of the Nightly Nuge, because that really is the coalescence of the manifestation of a cultural deprivation in 2022 that we can remedy if the conservative God family country families of this country would stop spectating and engage. So welcome back, everybody, to the Nightly Nuge with my blood brother for truth, logic, and common sense, Keith Mark, my backstrap daddy.
As you know, Ted, on the topic of madness, our U.S. Congress just passed a $1.5 trillion spending bill. It's nearly 3,000 pages. It was dropped on these legislators' desks at 2:30 in the morning, and they voted first thing up when the sun came up. How can that possibly be?
If the government of the United States passing a 3,000-page spending bill of $1.5 trillion without their employers able to review it, if that's not the manifestation of a cultural deprivation and, quite honestly, a cultural abandonment, because this experiment in self-government is about all of ourselves directing and guiding accurate representation from our elected employees. That's why it's 3,000 pages. That's irresponsible. It's absolutely contrary to the concept of political accountability. And I promise you, of those 3,000 pages, I bet you 2,750 of them are superfluous. And of the $1.5 trillion spending, I can guarantee you that $1.2 trillion is wasteful, superfluous, and self-indulgent by a greedy, corrupt, oath-violating Uncle Sam. That's my take on it, and I dare anybody to prove me otherwise.
You know what, Ted? I think you're 100% correct. Our country's 30 trillion with a T, which, I mean, I defy you to write the number, start with that. But let me tell you some of the things that are in the bill, Ted. $496,000 went to promote health, equality, and affordable swimming access in Yonkers, New York.
That's cronyism. That's cronyism at its worth. If you really did the investigation into that spending, there would be a bunch of corrupt political cronies that are benefiting. Once again, I guarantee it's about greed and power corruption.
$575,000 goes for green infrastructure development in New York. There's a theme there, New York, New York. $995,000 goes for, I quote, grid resilience and equity in energy transition. Equity in energy transition, nearly $1 million. $750,000 goes to Delaware for a Center for Diversity, Inclusion, and Social Equity. I could go on and on. $800,000 went to California to build lofts for aspiring artists. Millions went down to Arizona for all kinds of projects. I mean, it's insanity, Ted. It's insanity. What's your take?
It's literally pornography, safety net insanity. Let me say that again. I just came up with that, but I'm so good at mining the English language. I don't even have a Webster's dictionary, but somewhere in my accumulation of truth, logic, and common sense and data and evidence, I believe it's pornographic cronyism, and waste. When you provide unlimited safety nets for designated elements of our society, that makes those designated elements of our society more dependent and weaker. No one spends wiser. No one spends more accountable than we, the people who get up early and have to put up with rush hour every day. Now, I don't. My idea of rush hour is slowing down on my lane to let a herd of antelope go by. Now, being that as it may, I've been on tour nonstop all my life, and I've had my share of rush hours in Atlanta and Denver and Detroit and Chicago and LA and San Francisco and Dallas and Albuquerque, where rush hour is a pain in the ass. But you know what, Keith? The middle class gets up every day and they go, there's a rush hour that's a pain in the ass, but I'm starting up the Buick and I'm heading into the rush hour, because if you don't experience a pain in the ass, then you're slovenly, that you're irresponsible, and you're dependent.
So our own U.S. Congress refused to vote money to secure our southern border. They withdrew the funding that President Trump said. Yet in this spending bill, there are hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to secure the Ukrainian border and other countries overseas. I can't make heads or tails of it. And before you give your answer, this is exactly why I push our listeners, and I know you do too, to huntthevote.org, huntthevote.org, because if we the people, the best of we the people, aren't voting, you are going to continue to get this. So what's your take on hundreds of millions of dollars going to secure foreign borders when we won't even secure our own? Last thought.
By supporting other countries' borders while glaringly abandoning our own borders, which clearly is the number one responsibility of the U.S. government, to secure the United States of America. It's absolutely obscene. These are horrible, rotten, treacherous, nasty, dishonest, I believe, evil people running our government that will abandon the United States for Hunter Biden's playground in the Ukraine. But my point is, in between every breath I take, there is a glaring, irrefutable example of corruption, greed, and criminal abuse of power by the government of the United States of America. It's tragedy.